Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Amelia Kramer. I am the owner and artist at Upwards Art Studio in Owen Sound, Ontario, Canada. We're going to, or I'm going to demo Inktense blocks and pencils today. So they are available in store and then on our website. We also do ship internationally. So the website is upwardsartstudio.com, all one word, upwards, the direction. Okay, so let's remove this pen and this video. Okay, so these are some of the smaller tins for the blocks and the pencils. So they're made in the UK. So the blocks are like this. They're nice, big, chunky things. Okay. And then the pencils look like watercolor pencils. The nice thing about them is that wax is the carrier. So they're really nice and moves nicely on the paper or the fabric. And they're highly pigmented. And the pigment, once it's dry, is permanent. So that's different than watercolor pencils. So watercolor pencils sometimes are hard to layer because it might lift again. These will not lift. So that's a difference. So you can use them with watercolor pencils or you can use them in alternative to watercolor pencils, but yeah. Okay, so one way to do it, I forgot to give a palette. Let's just do it in this. We're gonna just do it in this tin. Okay, so what you can do is kind of make it like a watercolor. So I have the blocks and I'm going to use an X-Acto that I'm probably going to open up. Okay? And I can just shave off a little bit into my tin or my palette or whatever. I can mix the colors together. So I have a lot of blue. So I might do a little bit of magenta. And then I can use a brush and make it into what looks like a watercolor. Pigment. And then I can water that down a bit more. And I can go, so on the papers that I'm using today, this one's a watercolor pad and this one's a mixed media pad. They're slightly different. They're both slightly textured paper, right? But I get a nice wash and once it's dry, it's permanent. So I'm gonna do that on this paper too. So this paper is a little bit more, not as textured as the other one, but that's an option. So I can like slightly modify the colors by adding a bit more, like even a different, this red, I can modify, shave a little bit more and modify the color as I go on my palette. So that's one way. And it rinses with water. So it's really easy. So you can also draw with them. So this is a block. So you could just leave that, or you can thin it out again with either like just a regular watercolor brush, or if you're doing plein air, you could use one of the water brushes. They need a little starting, and we'll just need to find some of it. Start it. So you gotta have to squeeze them a little bit, not too hard, and then you can just come in, smudge that out. So if you're going to layer colors, layer them after they've dried. Otherwise, they're going to mix. Unless that's what you want, right? So I can thin that right out and make, get this natural line or something, and I put the other side so it has some shadow. So I'm just switching back and forth between papers.
I think I really.
Yeah, so these come in round and flats, right? I think
you have more control with that than a brush.
So the brush, I'll just use it on the, flip these around and go the other way. Yeah, you can control the water amount more. I flip my stuff around like all the time just so that it's easier for me instead of trying to awkwardly move my brush in a different way. So now I have this like nice thick line there. I'm not sure what I'm making, some sort of seed or something. Okay. So you can use so the same thing with the pencils. The pencils are the same thing. You can, let's use a different color than the one that I just used. Is this like green? So you can go in wet as well. So the paper is wet, and then I'm just adding this yellow to it. Actually, that's dry, so I can go on top of this with this yellow. That might not show up very well. Move that separate from the purple. The purple's, I guess, a bit not completely dry because it's going a bit brown, green brown. So you can use the edge of these, right? You could draw it with this sharp edge, or you could make a larger shape with the side of it, or yeah. So I feel like that's kind of obvious, but maybe. So what else did I want to do? So I did on the wet surface. So let's just do a wet surface completely. So I have my shape. I can kind of see where my water is because my brush is a bit dirty. And then I can go on here and it will just kind of pick up and go kind of more like a soft color, softer texture. And then I can use another brush or the same brush and kind of pull and make kind of gradients on those shapes. And these brushes to clean them, and just need a little bit of paper towel or your apron, and you just wipe it off, squeezing it until the color comes off. The kids like to do this for whatever reason.
It's amazing though, on a piece of Scott tower or whatever, in the end of the day, even dying and you press, it's very nice piece of art.
So let's try to layer something again, maybe with maybe a color that's gonna look better. That's a black. So sometimes I have a little scrap piece of paper to figure out what color these are, because the blocks, especially because they're quite pigmented and you don't really get a color indication, whereas the pencils on the tip is going to be the color that it is when it's dry.
It's a little different too, though. I did a sample. I have like 24, and I made a little sample sheet. That's my reference. I do it on fabric, but so I have one that tells me what each color looks like, because sometimes you forget how intense some of them. They're very intense.
So this is like almost like a Prussian blue.
Do you prefer the instead of the pencil?
I use both because I use it in mixed media. So I'll show you one thing that I've done with it that's readily available because it's right over here.
I have pencils, but I have I think it's a 24.
So this is upside down to you. So this just is I put the varnish on yesterday. This is Inktense in the middle. So that is, I think I pulled some of the blue, but I've left it kind of the texture of the board because that was important. And then these blue shapes here is Inktense. What else? Basically woodies. That's charcoal. I think,
Is this Inktense here?
I think those are Woody's pencils. Yeah, I think it's just these three things. And I've used different.
Is the bird a transfer?
The bird is a collage.
It's a cutout of printed on paper.
Yeah.
What kind of varnish would you put on top of that so that it didn't?
I
bleeding?
spray fix the Inktense that I haven't used water with, just as a in case type thing. So yeah, just a spray fixed it like you would use for pastel.
like
Yeah.
the water base.
Yeah, water-based, yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, like the Krylon low odor, or there's one the
Fixative.
Fixative, the Spectrum Fixative, and we also have a Windsor Newton branded one in the store. Yeah, so they're all slightly different. The Krylon is very smelly, but it's Krylon.
Yeah.
Right, like we're used to it for glue and for like spray varnishes and stuff. And then the Spectra Fix is a pump spray, so it's not aerosol based. So the aerosol ones you should absolutely use outside because
Yes.
of aerosol.
So the other one's a
So the
good
other one's a
alternative
pump
in the
spray,
winter.
and I would suggest like spraying it in the air and trying to catch the bits
Rather than
instead of spraying right on it, because sometimes the spray can move stuff, especially if it's a bit fugitive. So
Yeah.
spray in the air, try to catch it, spray in the air, try to catch it. Yeah, just so that you get those little droplets instead of big, like if it's gonna,
Get a more balanced
Yeah.
layer.
yeah. Yeah, in case there's like droplets that can, like big droplets, and you're like, well, shoot, I was about to swear on video. I just became very aware of that when I was swearing. Yeah, so this Prussian blue is staying on top of this purple. Right, does that make sense? It's not blending in because the purple is dry.
yeah, so
Yeah.
once it's dry, it's not going to
It's not going
mix.
anywhere.
Even,
Yes.
but even if you took the water brush on top of that, could you still move it?
Once it's dry, you can't move it.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that's
that's a-
different,
yeah,
that's
that's a
different
great-
than the watercolor pencils, because they can move and lift if you're trying to layer sometimes.
more control.
Yeah, this is way more control. Yeah.
You know what
Um,
else works too is I'm doing it on fabric. Someone tipped me on using aloe vera gel.
Okay.
As
I'm
an
gonna do a little sample
Sorry.
on canvas. That's okay. I don't have the fabric medium in here. Do we have the guy? I'm glad I have Lisa today. Look for stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit on the fabric, and talk about how to use it on fabric a little bit, but yeah, I don't have all the things because I'm not that proficient at fabric or stitching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my near to last thing.
So could you on fabric, like say if you're doing a tree bough, could you use that like a crayon?
Yeah, I'm gonna demonstrate.
All
that
right,
next.
okay,
Yeah,
I'm
that's what
just
I
in the
did.
middle of
Yeah.
doing something.
Yeah.
I just colored everything in and then I activated everything right at the
Yeah.
end with
Yeah.
and the aloe vera was amazing
good.
because it's so much control.
Yeah.
You have a lot of control over where
Yeah.
how it activates.
Yeah. Okay, so I touched on the layering ability, so you can also make yourself a spray bottle of it because it is like an ink. So this is a little spritzer bottle. So they make a really fine mist. Okay, I don't know why I sprayed it on the page, but to show that it's a very fine mist, I guess. And this takes some balancing skill, which we'll see if I have. Maybe if you have somewhere to like stick it in, so you can shave bits of the block into the spray bottle. This is going everywhere. So if you, I'm just thinking this through. So if you shaved it onto a piece of paper
Funnel?
and make yourself a little funnel, yes. Oops, that's all wet under there. This is also awkward. I'm very not. Okay, anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And then give it a little shake. And then you can, hold on, I'm gonna get it through the pump. There we go.
Oh,
wow.
So you can also have a splash effect. So we'll see how this works. I've never been that great at this thing. Okay, so let's use a bigger water so that the droplets are bigger. I'm just using this because the droplets are bigger. This is very fine.
I love that though.
And then you can, let's use a color that is not in out. That's very dirty. Okay. So I would, there's two ways to do that. You can like draw in the droplets, but again, I feel like those end up being circles all the time. So you can shave it in. And it should kind of flower a bit. Working kind of, right? It's kind of splattered looking. I guess I should have used a different color than yellow.
No, it looks great.
Yes,
Yeah,
it'd be
So
black.
I'm just gonna hold that up there because it's very.
So
hard.
actually, you could almost use a set of each depending on how you want to create, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right, because this is a very fine line. So now I have this splatter stuff. So I can like go through, this is a much finer line. And it's kind of smudged because I put the water on it. Whereas this is thicker and more bold. Yeah. So really, like, I like using both of them, right? Because what if I want a thick line, or what if I want a skinny line, or what if I want a skinny line over top of a thick line?
Yes.
Right, and making that contrast in your work by the thickness and thinness of lines, and also the color. I'm gonna keep putting these in here so I don't lose them. Okay, so you can also use a stamp with them. So these are ones that I've cut out of like a speedy cut with a lino cutter. You can use commercially made ones. I just thought I'd show you that you can make your own. So you wet the stamp face. And this is a little, this is resisting the water a bit because it's got some foil ink on it. I keep using the same colors. Let's. Okay, so there is also this huge set. This is their biggest set, which is 2 trays. So we don't stock this, but we will order it. We have ordered it for other people. So it is like basically every color in rainbow that you would ever want.
Are these metallic, these ones?
Some of they're mostly just earth tones.
So are they, okay.
Yeah,
Are there such a thing as metallics?
I don't think so. So you can rub, now that you've got water on it, you can rub carefully. I'm not being very careful. And you can stamp.
Oh, I have lots of stamps too.
Oh, that didn't work very well.
Did it get too much water?
Yeah, too much water.
So yeah, even just stamping off somewhere. Yeah, so you can make your own papers and stuff that you would later collage into something else. Or just that could be part of your finished work. So again, like I've made this stamp. So this is my own idea, my own hand making it instead of something that's commercially made and a machine made it,
You
right?
could probably do it with things like potato or.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and do it print that way too. right?
Yeah, because that's already moist,
Yeah,
right? So it should just take it without having to spray it with anything. If you just like
If
cut
it's
your,
fresh.
yeah, if it's fresh.
yeah, if you can dry it out a little bit on a
Yeah.
paper towel too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between inkings too, to
Yeah.
control the.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I just like with this, I think I would stamp off anyway onto something that I can use later, right? Because why stamp it off onto paper towel that I'm just gonna throw into the garbage?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Right? Even if it doesn't work, I could take my brush and go, well, maybe I just want, a star or
Yeah.
something. Or I could just leave it as some sort of abstract shape thing.
Yeah, right, it would be good to cover it.
So you can also take a rubbing with them. Do we remember going to a graveyard and rubbing everybody's
Cross rubbings, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that.
Oh,
So this is a stencil, so we'll see how this works. I couldn't think of something that was textured in my head right away while I was setting up this morning. So you should be able to use it on their side. I'm getting the edge of that. I'm not really getting the stencil. You should be able to do that when it's all wet.
Looks cool though, it's showing you how
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah,
color
you can see it.
transfer
Yeah,
is
it's
different
pretty
for the wet and the dry.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just need a thinner paper there.
Mm.
Kind of like the Shiva paint sticks, isn't it?
I could come in with a different color Where did I get this one? Right, and I could like outline this shape and highlight it a bit more.
That's what shows overview work.
Yeah, and then just use a finer brush and just kind of pull it and the blue together. It's kind of a blue purple, there's a lot of blue in there. Right, and I could do the whole thing. Okay, so with fabric, I'm jumping around. Oh, wow. Okay, so I only have a little piece of canvas. So if you stitch first, the stitching will keep the Inktense within the stitch line. Right, does that make sense? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's-
it does to me.
the thread's gonna absorb the Inktense, and then it will keep it inside the stitch line. So if you're quilting,
Depending on
it will still keep it in most of the time. Yeah, I would say like 90% of the time it will keep it in. So if you're
Aloe vera gel
Yeah.
really comes in, it
Yeah.
keeps those edges really crisp.
Yeah.
And you just, because it doesn't move, it doesn't kind of,
Doesn't
the
move.
fabric doesn't really absorb the aloe vera
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it does water.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so alternatives to that is there's not sure we have any left in the store, the folk art fabric medium.
Yes, I think we do. Here's the GAC 100. We don't have any back here.
The
but that-
GAC 900 is different than the
Okay.
100. So GAC 900 can do the same thing, and Liquitex has a fabric medium as well that can do the same thing. They're just art products instead of
And it's, are you activating the pencil, the color
Yeah.
with that, or are you
Yeah.
putting it around to control?
You're activating the pencil with it.
Okay.
So you would draw on with it. So if I had stitch lines, I could draw onto this.
Do you know if there's a difference between the stitch lines being a nylon thread as opposed to a cotton thread? Like, would it bleed through the
Oh, yeah,
cotton
good
as opposed
question.
to the nylon?
So when you're to avoid running, either add a stitch with whatever type of thread, or you can use linen or canvas. So that those are loose weave fabrics. So
Nice.
tight weave fabrics will make it more likely to bleed.
Nice.
So tight weave would be like nylon, what else? Silk, cotton, yeah, any of that kind of stuff.
And
So
the
I-
threads are supposed to color.
So,
Medium and medium.
yeah, I'm not gonna use it because this is a store one, but this is like a cheap brand one. So you could use it in the same way. I'm gonna use water because I don't have some, well, I don't know, maybe just grab the GAC and we'll see what it does. Or was it from the store?
This was from the store.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind.
no.
So I'm gonna use this brush because it's got more water. So I would use the fabric medium instead of the water. But you can use water as well and then seal it.
Unless you want that kind of
Unless you want this like
feathery,
flowy stuff.
crispy look.
And then you can heat set it by putting muslin over it. Once it's dry, heat set it with muslin over top and then a hot iron. And it's not like pressing out a seam iron. It's like you're trying to set it iron. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
It's
pressing
the
down
temperature, right?
without, yeah, and adjusting the temperature. Yeah. And you can also use like a fabric medium or a fabric resist medium with this as well,
Yeah, it's fun.
right? Yeah.
Do you know, instead of spending money on an expensive resist, the blue glue stick,
Mhm.
it works great with your stencils and that. And the thing with it is, it'll wash off when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very
Yeah, so that's
inexpensive.
this, if you wanna wash it, you have to really like hand wash, very like no detergent, that kind of, because it's ink, right? So
Yeah.
we want it to set, and it's not for quilts that are used every day, like on your bed, it's for art,
Art quilts and
art
things like that.
quilts and art installations and stuff like that,
Yeah.
rather than usable.
even if it's heat set, it
I
could
would
have a
still-
tendency to
yeah.
wash out.
Yeah.
So for clothing or something, it's
Yeah, it would
Not-
be, you could do it, but I think that it would wash out and you'd still need to hand wash.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing it in the washing machine, which would agitate it a lot, and that soap's very harsh, right? So, and then could bleed all over the rest of your load. So, yeah, hand wash. Yeah, and you've needed a very, if you're gonna use a soap, then a very gentle detergent. Yeah.
Would you just use maybe like a Dawn or something like that, or would that not be
Dawn
good?
Dawn is pretty harsh too. I
Yeah.
would probably use like a
Woolite
There
or
is
something?
Synthroid.
or
There is-
snowy white.
There is
Yeah.
Synthroid that they tell you to use if you're washing your quilt the first time.
Yeah.
It's very, you only need a half a teaspoon to,
Yeah, again, it's not something that I would, like, I wouldn't make wearable clothes for this.
no, I
Like,
wouldn't.
if you're making a collection of clothes that you're going to hang on a mannequin and show your ability to use color and line and what you're trying to say in your art, more as an art piece than as a wearable art.
Yeah, I get
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what I was going to talk about. We had some questions along the way. Was there any other questions? Oh, I was gonna use it on this, like, I forgot I was. gonna
I
use
was
it on
wondering,
this. So this is just, it's old music. Sheet music.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this has a date on it, 47.
Oh,
So this is gonna crinkle a little bit when I get it wet. But I can do like big shapes, right? This is nice collage paper because it's nice and thin, but also I can make it my own instead of just the music. I
Yeah.
can, take some of this.
got old music books at home from my kids.
Yeah, most of this is my friends. She had lots of it. She cost me, didn't know how much there was. And she hadn't played piano or sung for many years. Yeah, so I can make my own collage paper with this as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is that one better than your pencils?
They blend about the same. The color is more intense,
Okay.
right? Hence the brand name
Yes, 'cause
Inktense.
I
Yeah,
have the pencils, I've been used them for years.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then I could add, right, now that that's all wet, I can still add something that's gonna bleed. Or I can add it and not bleed, right? So, yeah. And then I could cut out or tear this once it's dry.
for collage, yeah,
For
to
collage.
repeat it on
Yeah.
various parts of
Yeah.
collage, yeah, it's great.
I think that they're
And you can
like,
do the same thing with fabric, right? Because you can collage with fabric.
oh, yeah.
Right? So you could do the same thing that you just have your piece of like canvas or cotton or whatever, do a whole bunch of designs and then you could cut and stitch that stuff to something else or, yeah, there's lots of possibilities. But yes, they're significantly brighter than water.
If you pre-treat your fabric too, it strips it of all those
Yeah,
hard chemicals and therefore it doesn't bleed as bad either.
Yeah, I would just suggest if you're making anything to pre-wash your fabric.
Yeah, I just use
Yeah,
it
Because
pre-treat
it takes out the sizing and you could have like lines through it from the sizing and
Or
things
areas, yeah, where it's
resist.
not gonna take
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, it works great.
yeah.
I colored in, I had a poppy and I did all of the coloring, just like it was like a crayon book.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I activated everything all at once. Like I
Yeah.
did the whole thing. And then
Yeah.
I just activated with the aloe vera gel.
Yeah.
And it worked. And you're right, it didn't, because it was, canvas.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an open weave.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I embroidered on top of it.
Yeah, so you can either like stitch beforehand or stitch
Yeah.
afterwards and decide.
Yeah, you can even stitch beforehand and then some of the colors that get in, like
Yeah.
with neutrals, like.
Yeah.
Have you done both? Do you prefer stitching before or after, or?
This is my first foray and
Okay.
I've done stitching a lot, but I took a photograph and
Yeah.
I colored it all in beforehand and then activated. And then I stitched. like quilted around. I put batting behind it and quilted around.
So if you stitched before and say you used white thread,
Yeah,
these would activate, that would be pretty interesting too.
yeah. I just used colors of embroidery thread that matched my areas. So there was shading, there was areas of purple and different colors of red and orangey colors. And I just used floss that matched each area.
Yeah.
And then I quilted around the outside so that it was kind of.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
If you were to finish something off with a cold wax, like ganglion or something like that, what happens with these based on the fact that they have a wax content? Do they do like an oil wax?
Once if they're wet and they dry, then the wax
still
doesn't move them at all. So if they're dry, I would still try a fixative, just in case it does want to move, because the wax would move it. Yeah, I didn't get any of that stuff out. So in caustic, it goes underneath in caustic as well. Not that, I don't know if anybody uses I've never seen
Not yet.
anybody here for classes or open studio. So yeah, it's something that plays well with encaustic because it is wax based. So usually things that work with encaustic also work with cold wax. Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay. Mind's
amazing.
blown.
So I thought, oh, I've used them before, but then I thought, oh, I can probably learn a thing or two. I've learned
A lot.
an encyclopedia's worth today.
Just so neat how diverse they are, like to be able to put it in that misting bottle and
Yeah.
just wetting them in different ways. And like you said, they're completely different from water pencils.
Yeah.
That's really
So-
cool.
So what is the price in comparison to the two?
Don't know.
Mm.
Looking at it.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the price of the.
Yeah, we can quote for the big one. It just comes from Toronto, so it would be within our next order and then. once
Oh
we
yeah,
order it,
I
we
have
wait 4
I
days.
have 24, but I just thinking this would be nice to have.
Yeah.
And would
And
this
I think
be
that's the
price
whole
point
thing,
wise?
if
Would
there's
this
too much water,
sticks be?
I think they're very similar.
Are they?
These might be a little bit more because of the wooden.
You have to manufacture it.
Yeah, Lisa's looking, Lisa's here. Otherwise I'd be looking on the computer. Okay, let's.
This is what we carry in stock pencils.
Here.
And
Okay, so this is the, where's my camera? This way, the Inktense blocks. So we have the 24 and the 12. 24 is $77.60. The 12 is $40.10. And then, no, those are pencils. I'm sorry, those were pencils. And then the blocks, 24 of the blocks, 12 of the blocks is the same. So the 12 of the blocks is $48.75. And the 24 of the blocks is $93.10. So yeah, the blocks are more expensive, which is not what I thought, but
Makes sense. with more pigments.
yes.
Yes.
And I remember the big one when we brought it in, $700.
And what's the?
It's just a very canvas, like cream colored canvas. There's actually some placemats that I never finished and didn't like. I cut it in half to make the. So that's all the stitching. So
Yeah,
it's-
it's
Or would you
I'm
ever
gonna stop.
Oh, it took, I thought I would never be done. And now I have to figure out how to frame it. So that's what I wanted to do the other day. It's just a placemat. And I cut it in half because I thought fabric is